That's an estimate, and we will do our best to move the case along, but delays may frequently occur. Those won't be anyone's fault, so do not hold them against the parties. Delays will usually occur because the attorneys and I often may need to resolve certain legal matters before these matters may be presented to the court, or because I may be busy with other matters. The usual hours of the trial will be from 8:30 to 4:30. We will take short recesses about every mid-morning and mid-afternoon, and may occasionally take stretch breaks in place. We will recess at 12 p.m. and begin at 1:30 p.m. unless a different starting time is announced prior to recessing for the evening. You may assume the starting time of 8:30 a.m. for the next day. At the beginning of the day, please assemble in the jury room for this division. Please do not come back into the courtroom until you are called by the bailiff. And that's, as I mentioned yesterday, Tuesday through Friday. Monday is a day off. All right, we're on the top of the page, and we're almost finished. Criminal trials generally proceed in the following order. First, the prosecuting attorney will make an opening statement giving a preview of the case. The defendant's attorney may make an opening statement outlining the defense case immediately after the prosecutor's statement, or the defense may postpone its opening statement until after the state's case has been presented. What is said in opening statements is not evidence, nor is it argument. The purpose of an opening statement is to help you prepare for the anticipated evidence. Then second, the state will present its evidence. After the state finishes the presentation of its evidence, the defendant may present evidence. If the defendant does produce evidence, the state may present additional or rebuttal evidence. With each witness, there is a direct examination, a cross-examination by the opposing side, and finally redirect examination. This usually ends the testimony of that evidence. Third, after all the evidence is in, I will read and give you copies of the final jury instructions. Those are the rules of law that you must follow in reaching your verdict. Fourth, the attorneys will make closing arguments to tell you what they think the evidence shows and how you should decide the case. The state has the right to open and close the argument since the state has the burden of proof. Just as in opening statements, what is said in closing arguments is not evidence. Finally, you will deliberate in the jury room about the evidence and the rules of law in an effort to reach your verdicts. If you unanimously agree upon the verdicts, they will be read in open court with you and the parties present. And finally, you will be discharged and released from all admonitions. The rules of law that I have shared with you in the past few minutes are preliminary only. At the end of the case, I will read to you and give you a copy of the final instructions of law. In deciding this case, you must be guided by the final instructions. All right, the final 2 pages are another way to state the admonition. And I'm not going to read those now. I'll read those at an appropriate time. That's what I told you yesterday. All right, looks like one of the jurors has a question. Before we go farther. Counsel, hopefully you still have your headsets in front of you.
Hello. Good afternoon, Mommy. Good afternoon. I thought this was an interesting case. In a nutshell, this is the rancher, and he is in charge of murder, second-degree murder. Somebody crossed his property, an illegal immigrant from the Arizona borderline.
Apparently, one of the jurors probably made a mistake, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. This trial will, I guess I said the trial will last through February 19th.
Oh.
It should last through April 19th. That's when the instruction. So thanks for the correction.
And the description is below. I thought this would be an interesting.
So I'm going to mark the first question. It's question number 1. I'll mark this. It's not really a question. It's a correction.
So now we are on day 1, and we didn't have an opening.
And the state may make its opening statement. Either Ms. Huntley or Mr. Jennings.
Thank you.
When do I ever keep my mouth shut? So anyway, yep, here we go. Here we go. Gavel to gavel, hopefully. Here she is.
On January 30th of 2023, at 2:30 in the afternoon, George Allen Kelly walked out of his house armed with an AK-47 semi-automatic assault rifle and a .40 caliber handgun. And he opened fire
Right, God protect
on an unarmed
protect their
man
property and their life.
and an unsuspecting man.
And here's the state.
Can y'all hear me better now?
Yes.
As I was saying, Mr. Kelly, armed with an AK-47 semi-automatic assault rifle and a .40 caliber handgun, walked out of his house and opened fire on two unarmed men who were unsuspecting. Those men were 115 yards away from Mr. Kelly and his residence. That's the length of a football field. Those men, Daniel Ramirez and Gabriel
I'm not really
Cuen-Butimea,
sure. I have to research
posed no threat to
that.
Mr. Kelly and no threat to his wife. They were walking parallel to the Kelly
That's a good
residence,
question.
headed back to the United States-Mexico border.
Let's see what I can come up with. Very good question.
Before firing on those men, George Allen Kelly gave no verbal warnings of any kind. He had no interaction of any kind with these men. Out of nowhere, without saying a thing, without any legal justification, George Allen Kelly let off a barrage of semi-automatic assault rifle fire at these two men. He stood on his back patio and he shot that semi-automatic assault rifle
The answer is yes.
through the patio,
He can legally own one.
across a fence line, through a pasture where he keeps his horse, across another fence
I
line,
googled it, and Google
and
said
across
the
the
answer
dirt
is
road.
yes. Arizona law
And into the
allows the
back
legal possession
of Gabriel
of
Cuen-Butimea.
AK-47 rifles, as long as they are not fully automatic. Okay, as long as they're not
Now
fully
Daniel
automatic.
Ramirez was just steps
So
away
we have to find out
from his
if
companion
it was fully
when he
automatic.
saw Gabriel shot in the back,
Oh, the back.
and he saw Gabriel fall to his death. Daniel had to run for his life because the shots were still ringing out all around him. The state anticipates that Daniel will come here to tell you about what happened to him that day.
It says fully automatic.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is state versus George Allen Kelly in a nutshell.
I don't know.
On the screen you see in front of you,
That
on
would
your
that would
right,
be the biggest.
you see a
question
still
ever, really.
photo of the video interview of George Allen Kelly on the day of the
Okay, when
murder.
somebody shoot in the back, I do have a question.
On the left is a photograph of the view from George Allen Kelly's back patio as you look out toward the area where Gabriel fell and died.
I don't know.
This is a photograph of Gabriel Cuen-Butimea. And I'm going to ask you to do something in this case that George Allen Kelly's own words tell you that he did not do. I'm going to ask you to consider Gabriel Cuen-Butimea as a person, as a human being, and not as George Kelly described him, as an animal.
Hello, thank you for joining me.
Now, again, this is the view from George Allen Kelly's
Our
patio.
interest.
You'll see here looking out from his patio, across, out past his gazebo, and towards that pasture area I described a minute ago. And it's past that pasture area, past a dirt road, is where Gabriel fell and died. I want to show you the view from the other direction. This is the view through the pergola or the gazebo and back toward the area where George Allen Kelly was standing. And you'll see in that photograph sort of on the right, as you look through the gazebo, a door.
Try to.
That's not the main door into the residence. There are actually two doors on the back patio. There's another door that's directly behind that umbrella. And we'll show you another picture later that shows that door, but that's actually the door that George Kelly came out of. To the left of that in the photograph are two windows. Those are the windows to the living room area, and behind the living room area is actually the kitchen area. This is a photograph of the semi-automatic assault rifle, AK-47, that George Allen Kelly shot and killed Gabriel Cuen-Butimea with on January 30th. And I want to point out a few features on this weapon. There's a green strap on the weapon, and these details become relevant when you hear the officers talk about what they observed George Kelly carrying later on in the day. So there's a green strap on the handgun, pardon me, and you'll see that there are some wood features on the AK-47 also, and that the metal on the weapon is a little bit aged from use.
Yeah, that's
so you can kind of see that. I think they call it bluing, a little bluing on the weapon.
Automatic.
And if you look on the front end of the weapon, you'll see that taped with black electrical tape is a flashlight with an orange button on it. And just below the AK-47 is what's referred to as the magazine. Sometimes it's called the clip because that's what holds the bullets that clips inside the gun. And that magazine holds 30 rounds. And rounds are what they refer to, how you refer to the bullets that go into an AK-47. They're called rounds. So this AK-47 holds 30 rounds. It also holds 1 round inside the weapon itself for a total of 31 rounds. And you'll hear from the experts in this case that this entire magazine can be expelled, can be shot within less than 6 seconds. This is just the other side of the AK-47 for you to see, and a better view of that green strap that we referred to earlier.
Most people are, but I am married to a man.
This is the .40 caliber handgun that George Kelly had on his hip that day when he exited his house. Now I want to go back to this view from George Kelly's patio because there may be something that you didn't notice about this photograph. And that is that off in the distance, there is a detective standing in this picture wearing a black polo shirt and a tan pair of pants. He's not a small detective. He's about 6 feet tall. He's a good-sized detective. And that detective is standing in the spot where Gabriel fell and died in this case. And that red circle with the red arrow is pointing you to where the detective is. And if you still can't see it, that yellow arrow is now pointing directly at the detective. That's how far Gabriel and Daniel were when the defendant opened fire on them that day. Now I want to turn to the area where Gabriel's body was located. This is a photograph of Gabriel's body in place. And what you see in this photograph, first I want to point to the background of the photograph. You see some lights in the background? That is the Kelly residence.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so you can see them sort of off at the top part of the photograph off in the distance. Now below that, and just in front of that, you see a tree. Now keep your eye out for that tree because we're going to go through some other photographs and some drone footage later, and you'll want to have that as a marker when you're looking for things. In the foreground of the photograph is Gabriel's body, and you'll see that the grass was very high, and probably about 2 feet at the time. And it's that yellow straw grass. And you can see that Gabriel's body was very
Not a
difficult
very
to
strong
see in that terrain. Gabriel is wearing some tan
Sounds
boots,
like
some tan pants, an
she's
olive
questioning
colored jacket,
everything she says.
and a camouflage backpack. This is a close-up, closer up picture of Gabriel. Again, you can see the tan boots, the tan jacket, or the tan pants, pardon me, the olive colored jacket, and you can see a camouflage fanny pack along his side. And you can see the camouflage backpack, which is kind of up over his head. And you can see from these photographs that Gabriel is unarmed. There are no weapons in these photographs. There were no weapons located near Gabriel's body. In this photograph, you can see the blood seeping through Gabriel's jacket on his back where he was shot. And Gabriel was shot here on his back.
Here on the back, kind of the side to the back.
And this is a close-up of the gunshot wound. You can see the gunshot You can see the gunshot entry wound on his green jacket. And you can see that the blood has seeped around on the jacket. Also in this photograph, you can see that strap from the fanny pack that's down along the side. In addition to the, let me just try to switch out here. We'll see if that works any better. Sorry for the interruptions, folks. You can also see in this photograph that Gabriel has a radio on his waist. So you can see the black antenna from the radio sticking up on the side of him.
So where was the
And now I kind of want to give you some perspective on what we're looking at here. We looked at those photographs. We talked about what the terrain looks like. But you'll learn during this trial that we asked for some assistance from some other agencies. One of those agencies is the Department of Public Safety.
Sometimes in business, it's like you can't move your legs fast enough. It is literally like you're in a load of honey.
Sage accounting tools help you to never feel bogged down. Sage, helping business flow.
Sorry.
That drone footage allows us to do is take really accurate measurements from those photographs, and you'll see they're overlaid on a computer screen. The officer who operates those aerial drones will be able to give you some real good idea how those work. But essentially, what the trooper did is he ran that aerial drone over the area, and it gives you sort of like a bird's eye view of what that area looks like. And if you take a look, it's kind of hard to see in the photograph on your left, but you'll see that there's an up and down line in blue, and that's the north-south line. And you'll see a line that goes left and right. That's your east-west line, that's in red. And the green line is measuring the distance from Kelly's back patio where he shot to the area where the victim's body was located. And it's kind of difficult to see the end of the green line, but can you see it's on the other side of that dirt road? That's the location where Gabriel's body was found. Now on your right, you'll see the still shot of the aerial drone footage. I'm going to play that aerial drone footage for you, but it goes kind of quick, so I want to give you a little bit of a preview of what you're going to see. What you're looking at right now is like 3/4 of the top of the Kelly residence, and you can also see the Kelly back patio there. You'll see there's a fountain. You might want to keep that in your mind as a reference when you're looking at some of these photographs. And to the right of that, you see some orange cones. It's sort of in that general vicinity that George Allen Kelly shot that day. And those are where we took the measurements from on the patio, was from those orange cones. And you'll learn throughout the trial that to the right of the orange cone is the area where the spent shell casings were located in this case. So just to give you some orientation on what you're looking at and what you're going to hear during the trial. But just past this patio, you'll see the gazebo that we saw in the other photograph. Then you'll see a pile of metal structure on the right, some kind of smoking pit. And then you'll see a pile of wood just before a fence line. Then you'll see a pasture where the defendant keeps his horse. You'll see the second fence line, and then you'll see the dirt path, the dirt path just past that. And then it's past that you see the tree we saw in the photographs, and then 4 orange cones that depict the area where the victim's body was located, where he fell and died. So we're looking at the top of the house. That's the orange cones. We're going through the pergola. There's the wood pile on
I'm not
the
really
first
seeing
fence
any
line.
information about it, but I will dig further because I'm kind of curious about this.
It's kind of difficult to see, but if you keep your eyes peeled, you'll start to see now the second fence line, and it sort of goes up at an angle to your left. And now you see the dirt road and the tree and the 4 cones where Gabriel fell and died. And don't worry if you missed that second fence line. We're going to play another video that goes a little bit slower, and you can have a better look.
So this is a trail that he was shot.
So on to the next video. Again, you see that same diagram on your left, and on the right is the second drone video. So we're looking again at the top of the Kelly roof, and then we're going to see that same thing, that patio, the pergola or gazebo, and the smoking pit is that metal thing. Then you'll see the pile of wood, the fence line, and then keep your eyes peeled for a little bit for that second fence line and then the dirt road. And there you're in orange cones, the gazebo, the first fence line, and then now you can see the second fence line. And you can see it sort of goes off diagonally toward the road. Everybody see that? And
No,
then you
not
see the dirt
once
road
has she mentioned he was
and the
trespassing.
4 cones where Gabriel's body
To my channel
was
today.
located.
We are watching the claims, a live case. Killing on the ranch trail.
And now just to sort of give you some orientation, because we looked at those photographs and we saw that Gabriel was shot here, and you can see that the house was this direction. We know he was shot in the back. But to kind of give you perspective, we know that he fell forward onto his face into the dirt. And so to give you just, and this is not to scale, this is just for demonstrative purposes, so you get an idea of the orientation of the body. You can see that small little person we added there to that screen. That shows you the orientation of the body.
He was on the ranch,
So
but is he proving that he
down,
actually trespassed?
head to the south and feet to north with the
It's good to see you guys too.
entry lined up with the back of the Kelly house where Kelly shot from. Now, based on all of this information and based on what happened that day, George Kelly was charged with 2 things. He was charged with second-degree murder, and he was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. The second-degree murder relates to the death of Gabriel, and the aggravated assault with a deadly weapon relates to the shooting at Daniel.
Deadly weapon?
So second-degree murder is one of the more complicated crimes, lucky you all, but it's what's called a unified offense. That means there's 3 ways that the state can prove second-degree murder. You all don't have to agree on which theory of second-degree murder the defendant committed, You only have to agree
Well, I
that
am
he
very,
committed
very
one
glad
of
I
these
could keep
theories
it
of second-degree murder. And you all have to be unanimous that he committed the
safe
murder.
traveling,
You
okay?
can just decide
My
that,
friend, safe
that there are
traveling.
different ways in which he committed it. So I'm going to talk to you about the 3 ways that the state can prove during this trial that the defendant committed the murder. The first way is by proving that the defendant intentionally killed Gabriel Cuen-Butimea, that he
We are
shot him,
watching a
that he
trial.
intentionally shot him,
This is day 1.
and that he caused
Yes,
his death.
day 1. Opening statement.
The second way is the state can prove that Kelly
The
caused
state.
Gabriel's death
Obviously.
by conduct that he knew would
this
cause
man
death
is
or serious
a
physical injury.
trespasser.
So those are the 2
Right.
simple ways. The third way is the more complicated way, but it's also the
Better
easiest way.
descriptions below.
So we can also prove that the defendant committed second-degree murder by, under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to human life, he recklessly engaged in conduct that created a grave risk of death and thereby caused Gabriel's death. So that he behaved recklessly, manifesting an extreme indifference to human life, and that he created a grave risk of death and did cause the death. And the risk has to be such that disregarding it was a gross deviation from what a reasonable person would do in the circumstances. So that's second-degree murder. One of those 3 ways is how the state proves that the defendant committed second-degree murder in this case. And I submit to you that the facts of this case, the defendant is guilty on all 3 of those theories.
Did she convince you of that?
The second count is aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. And in aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, the state has to prove that Kelly intentionally placed Daniel in reasonable apprehension of imminent physical injury. In this case, that's by the conduct of shooting a gun in his direction. That would place anyone in reasonable apprehension of imminent physical injury. That means that they think they're about to get injured. That's pretty much what that means. And that he did so using a deadly weapon. We know he used his AK-47.
I do too. I can't wait to hear the defense opening. I know.
And now I want to talk to you a little bit about the area where this occurred and sort of orient you on what was happening that day. This is just a map of Santa Cruz County, just to give you an idea of the location where this happened. We're in Nogales. We can see that on the map there. We're in the area that's a little bit white. All the major residential areas in the county are on here: Rio Rico, Cuba, Sonoita, Elgin, and you can see those all on the map. You see the area circled in yellow. That is Keno Springs. That is the area where this event took place.
If the man in his castle, he has a right to protect
And
his own.
this area, this is a close-up of the area that's at issue, which is really just south of the Keno Springs residential area. And you'll see to the right on this map in white is an area called Pedregoso
Good
Tanks.
point, Lord.
That's an area that's in the National Forest.
I am so glad.
And as I said, Keno Springs is, the residential part of Keno Springs is just to the north of this. And Nogales, where we are today, is just to the west of this area. And to the northeast of this area is Patagonia. And you'll see along the bottom here is the United States-Mexico border. And you'll see this area where the arrow points is right where the border wall ends. You'll see like a dirt road that comes right up from the map. Where that arrow points, that the border wall ends, that is right where the border wall ends, right where that road comes directly up from the end of the border wall there. Over on the right of this map is the National Forest.
Just wait.
Daniel Ramirez and Gabriel Cuen-Butimea were with a group of undocumented migrants, illegal immigrants, who crossed the border illegally at the end of the border wall. And they crossed the border really early that morning, and they hiked up into the national forest. And they've been hiking all day in that area. And you're gonna you're gonna meet Daniel. Daniel's gonna come here and testify. And you're gonna learn that Daniel is a really humble guy. Daniel comes from Honduras, and Daniel had spent many years in Mexico. He has a 5th or 6th grade education, and he generally works as a farmhand in a small village in Mexico. And you'll learn that, obviously, for someone with his educational background and with his occupation, he struggles to get by in off-season. And in sometime before January of 2023, he was working a masonry job during the off-season in Nogales, Sonora, and he met Gabriel Cuen-Butimea. And he and Gabriel started talking about getting work in the United States as a roofer. And as they talked, Daniel decided that sounded like a good idea, and so he paid illegal folks to come across the line illegally. He paid a fee to come across the line. And you'll hear that Daniel was traveling across and up and through the national forest that day with Gabriel and with a group of men, about 7 or 8 people altogether. And they were traveling up through the national forest. They traveled most of the day. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and they encountered some Border Patrol officers. And so they decided to scatter. They took off running all in different directions. Gabriel and Daniel stayed together, and they decided they were going to go back into Mexico and just give this a try another day. And so they were running, fleeing from Border Patrol, running pretty fast for about a half an hour.
I'm not sure. I have to dig into that more. If it was, I have it on my notes too.
And it was at about that time that
So I
they
don't know
decided they were going to take a little bit of a rest. They were worn out from running. They're headed back to Mexico, and they're going to
Evidently,
slow
he's
down
a
and take a
frequent
rest.
trespasser
And
on
Daniel
his properties.
didn't even
So
have
yeah,
time to
possibly.
register that there was a residence around. The only thing Daniel saw was a red horse, a skinny red horse. And he saw that horse off to his right. He's walking along a dirt path. Dirt path is sort of off to their right. And he sees this skinny red horse off to his right. And they're walking along, and they see this skinny red horse. And out of nowhere, a barrage of semi-automatic assault rifle fire comes their direction.
Oh, he was taking money to get there. So yes, he.
And they're
defines it
walking,
being
and Daniel sees Gabriel just a few feet ahead of him get hit in the back with the assault rifle fire. And he sees him grab his chest
more to the
and
side.
say, "I'm hit." And he sees him fall in front of him and die. And then Gabriel, because the shots are still ringing out all around him, takes off running and runs for the border, running for his life. Now at around 2:30 that day,
Oh, yeah, it kind of sounds like he was running for the
George
wall.
Kelly came to his house to have some lunch. And he was in his kitchen, making his lunch at his kitchen island, when he sees something outside that catches his attention. And just sort of to give you a little bit of an idea, George Kelly's house is about a little less than 1.5 miles from the United States-Mexico border. His property is about 170 acres, and it's surrounded by a large ranch, the Buena Vista Ranch. The Buena Vista Ranch is on the west side of his property, so the Nogales side, and the south side of his property. On the east side of his property is National Forest, and to the north is that Keno Springs residential area. Excuse me. And George Kelly was in his house that day, making his lunch, when he saw something outside that caught his attention. Instead of calling 911, he has his .40 caliber handgun on his hip. He goes to his back door, grabs his AK-47, and tells his wife to call the Border Patrol. To call the Border Patrol ranch liaison specifically. And his name is
He
Jeremy
called
Morcell.
the Border Patrol.
And so Wanda Kelly picks up her phone,
Went to murder, why would you do
calls
that?
the Border Patrol, and George Kelly goes outside and lets off a barrage of semi-automatic assault rifle fire.
And what did the Border Patrol person do?
These are the two weapons that George Kelly had that day. We've already talked about those. And again, this is the view from George Kelly's back patio where he went out and let off that semi-automatic assault rifle fire. And that's the area where Gabriel and Daniel were, that Gabriel fell and died. This is Jeremy Morcell. Jeremy Morcell is that ranch liaison that George Allen Kelly's wife called that day.
Hey,
The job of a ranch liaison is kind of just what it sounds like. Border Patrol needs to have access
I'm
to
thinking he
properties
is
that are
probably
close to the
going to be
border
one of
in order to do their work.
That
And so they
come on the stage.
work hard to have good relationships with people who are near the border. And the ranch liaison's job is to facilitate that access
Exactly.
to those properties, to work with the residents to have them allow the Border Patrol to have access, and also to facilitate communication with those folks, to make sure those folks know when there's an operation going on so they can stay out of the way, so they don't put themselves in the middle of an operation, and so that the homeowners can communicate with the Border Patrol if there's any information that they want to pass on to help Border Patrol with their job. So that's what Jeremy Morcell's job is. So this day at 2:30, George Kelly calls Jeremy Morcell. And he says to George, "I'm being shot at and I'm shooting back." He says, "I can't talk right now. There's 5 people all running southbound with packs." And Jeremy Morcell will
Yes,
tell
he was
you
trying to
that
do the
during
right
that
thing.
phone
Exactly.
conversation, George Kelly was very rushed and very frantic on the phone call.
Exactly my point.
And you're gonna wonder, Kim, why are you giving me all these
He was trying to call
details
the
about
Border
these phone
Patrol.
calls and these
Does that mean
statements?
he was going to murder?
It's because
Intended to
throughout
murder
the day, these stories shift from moment to moment with Mr. Kelly. And it'll be important for you to take good notes about what Mr. Kelly says and when he says it and when that story changes, because that's a shifting story throughout the day. So that was the first call. While that call is happening, Agent Morcell is talking to the appropriate people in his dispatch center, making sure that Border Patrol gets dispatched out, and also making sure the Sheriff's Department gets dispatched out, because Mr. Kelly has said there's a shooting going on. About 2:36, Jeremy Morcell calls Kelly back. At this time, Kelly gives him a slightly different story. He tells him he had an altercation with these people and they're headed toward Keno Springs, which is now the opposite direction that he said during the first phone call. And he says something about maybe they're trying to circle back or something of that nature. He says on this call, not I'm being shot at and I'm shooting back, but I heard a gunshot in my direction. And he saw his horse running by. And it's unclear in this phone conversation, is he outside when he hears the gunshot or is he inside when he hears the gunshot? And that changes again later, whether he's inside or he's outside when he hears this alleged gunshot. A gunshot, by the way, that no one else hears other than George Allen Kelly. When he's on this conversation at 2:36 with Jeremy Morcell, he says that he's inspecting his horse and that it doesn't look like his horse was shot. Now, the horse is going to be important because you're going to hear from Daniel about the horse and how Daniel believes that the horse got shot. And he believed at the time that the horse got shot, and he thought the horse saved his life. From his view of what was happening at that time, that's what he thought happened. And clearly, George Allen Kelly also thought something happened to his horse because he's busy inspecting him at this point. George said that, and this is the important piece of this phone conversation, the people were too far away to tell if they had any kind of firearms. 115 yards away, they were too far away to tell if they had any firearms. George Allen Kelly could not tell if they had any firearms. And we saw that from the picture we saw a few minutes ago about the location where Gabriel fell and died. During this phone conversation, he was quite a bit calmer than he was during that second phone conversation. So the next thing that happens is officers have been dispatched out, and the Border Patrol gets there really quick. They're there within about 10 minutes. This is a pretty remote area, so that quick of a response time is pretty great. So when the Border Patrol arrives, the first Border Patrol agent, there's 2 Border Patrol agents in total who go out to the scene during this first call for service, and 5 sheriff's deputies respond.
The horse was shot. That's why he inspected the horse.
When the first deputy arrives, or the first Border Patrol agent arrives, he learns that Mr. Kelly is headed south in the property, that he's taken off south from his house on the property. And before they go looking for Mr. Kelly, they decide they're going to search the area of the house for any kind of immediate danger. So they kind of split up, actually 6 of them, because the 5th deputy doesn't get there until pretty much everything's done. So the 6 of them split up. They search that immediate area of the pasture by the house. They search the area around the house, and they tell Mrs. Kelly, stay in the house. We're gonna go look around. The Border Patrol agents head off. They just sort of hike straight across the property, and you'll see that they locate Mr. Kelly about a quarter mile south of the house, not far from a barn and a mechanical pump house. It's a pump house where you pump water from a well in the ground. So it's got a little pump house, and it's down in that area that the Border Patrol finds him.
Here it is. Okay.
And when they do find him, by the way, they see him walking with his dog. He's carrying an AK-47, and they don't locate anyone else. None of the deputies, none of the Border Patrol locate anyone else while they're there. This is a map
was
just to give you an idea of the Kelly property. And you'll see at the top of the map in white is the Kelly residence. You'll see that area in blue is the area of the residence. And around the edge of the blue line is about where Gabriel's body was located. The area in green is the barn. They have a big metal barn. It's that metal barn near that area, and this yellow circle is the pump house. It's in that area where the Border Patrol find Mr. Kelly walking in that location. Just one other thing for you to note for the property, there's also an area here of corrals and some water troughs that may at some point during the trial, you may want to know where those are, just to give you an idea. And you'll see that there's a dirt road that goes through the property. That's just the Kelly's sort of driveway through their property. And you'll also see in this map that there's a wash that runs through the Kelly property. You can kind of see that in the drone footage we looked at. Off in the background, you can see a little piece of the dirt road, and you can see the wash that's kind of down below. But those are just some items for you to have an idea of, so that they may become important during the trial.
Ms. Aldean, stand by.
Yes, sir.
Please.
She said something about a horse being shot, but I'm not sure if it was, because it was shot by someone who she's claiming was unarmed. She's not
Court
making
reporter's
any
been going
sense
for about
here.
an hour and a half, and they need a break, as do the interpreters. Keep them going
Okay,
too much
good,
longer
good,
beyond that.
good. Glad we're
All
going
the
on
data
break.
we have suggests generally that we've owned the mistakes. So
Yeah,
we'll take a
all
10-minute
right.
recess,
Good.
and we'll
Good.
continue with the opening statement.
Okay. Break. Go, y'all. Adjust this a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up some things that she had that only saw 2 seconds. Hate it when they do that. Okay. So, here we go. And just give you a few minutes. Because this attorney is not making sense to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just missing something intense or whatever. I don't know. Oh my gosh, what a case this is going to be.
And you're gonna wonder, Kim, why?
Okay, wait a minute. Hold it. Interpreter? Yeah. Interesting. Oh, maybe for Spanish. Okay, just a second here, you guys. Somebody watch the court for me. Because I want to see something here. If I can get it. Okay. Okay. 2:31, the call from Kelly. Okay, does everybody see this? Okay. 2:31. Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. Okay, 2:30 p.m. Was the call from Kelly. That's his last name. And he says, I'm being shot at. I can't talk right now. There are 5 people, all with packs running 58. Oh, wow. And demeanor, rushed and frantic. Did everybody see that? So 2:30 p.m., Kelly calls and says, I am being shot at. She doesn't explain this very well, doesn't she? I'm being shot at. I'm shooting back. I can't talk right now. There's 5 people, all with packs and running 58. Wow. To me, that speaks volumes. Yes, it does sound like self-defense. She's trying to dodge that is what she's trying to do. For one thing, her chart could hurt her in the long run, because if I was sitting on that jury and I saw that, I would have definitely think self-defense. 2:30 call. He calls frantic. Oh, I'm being shot at. There's like 5 people here, or whatever. Yeah. And you're going to convince me that he is going to be charged with a 2nd-degree murder because of this? No. And it does sound like self-defense. So I'm really glad that I brought that up. I really am, because the thing is, when they put the presentations up front and they only give you a second to observe it, the cameraman, it's probably his thing more than, I don't know, but she doesn't stick to her presentation very well because of that. And if you recall with the Troconis state, when he was doing his closing, he had his presentation and he did it so beautifully and so laid out that you really did believe him. Yeah, and it also went blurry really quick. Was this staged to do that? See, I don't know. I think this case is going to be kind of interesting. It really is, and I am biased. I'll be honest, because you know what? You all know that I don't like to make any decisions until all the evidence has been presented. But with this in particular case, I don't know. I guess I'm just going to have to be the defense. Gosh, can you imagine what John would say if he heard that? But anyway, I miss him. But yeah, it really does show me that the state is going to have a very weak case. They're going to have to convince the jury that he intentionally wanted to manslaughter the victim, the deceased victim. Can't wait for the test. I didn't think this was going to happen. We find a case. Interesting. It's very interesting. So does anybody have any intake on what I was presenting? Anything to add? We do have questions about the horse. Let's talk about the horse. I was under the impression that he was examining his horse and to see if there was any bullets in the horse. And then he noticed that, then he discovered there was no horse. Yeah, angry crocheting is right, or yes. Oh, what are you working on, Mommy? Mommy, what are you crocheting? We should all talk about what are we doing while we're listening to this? A sweater. Oh my gosh, that's going to be beautiful. Oh, I make Barbie sweaters. And a skirt and a dress. Oh gosh. Oh, it makes me want to take out my knit needles just because. I know that. Just go right in that stitch. I'm mad. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really, really curious what the defense is going to come up with. And also, who needs the interpreter? Hey, remember the case where they thought she needed the interpreter when she knew perfectly good English? Remember Michelle? Perfectly good English. It's just memories of different courts. I'm telling you. Okay, so while we're just waiting for the interpreter, I don't know why they want one, but first of all, we're going to talk about how Kelly is charged with second-degree murder for aggravated assault, And when she was describing where the victim was, she was kind of like pointing kind of to her, kind of like to her side, which to me, that's the back, but not the middle of the back. But I don't know. We also need to talk about castle law, and castle law is the law where they have a right to defend themselves, anybody that enters into their property. And here is something that I really truly want to emphasize: not facing legal prosecution. Why is he on trial? Okay. So anyway, then he calls the border control. This Jeremy guy, and we're all going to know he's going to be on the stand. That's a given. And my thoughts are, if you're really going to commit a crime, would you want to call the border control or any kind of police officer? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you guys just saw me with that makeup. Yeah. Yeah. Are you? So we're still thinking about the horse shot or not shot, but anyway, these are the things that I have come up with from her. Who are the skirt and dress for? Well, we can't all be, we can't always talk about trials all the time, right? Yeah, we can. We're nerds. I'm a nerd. I'm a trial nerd. My husband makes fun of me. He's the one who watches these Westerns over and over and over until you can actually cite the dialogue. Yeah. So here we are. The great state of Arizona. And there's the seal we can stare at. But this is going to be an interesting trial. Of course, I say that about all of them, except and then when I just drop one, and I'm sorry about that. But okay, then she also talked about the AK-47 automatic rifle. Is it rifle or automatic gun, whatever, Foley. And we discovered that was legal in Arizona. Okay, all right. Okay, here we go. Mommy, are you still here? I found out some information. Okay, ready? All right, I'm going to call him Gabriel because that's what they're calling him. He was not a coyote. He was a 48-year-old migrant from Mexico. I don't know how to, Nogales, Mexico. Anyway, unfortunately, he lost his life in a tragic accident near the U.S. border, Mexico border. The accident occurred on January 30th. The Arizona rancher, George Allen Kelly, allegedly shot a group of immigrants on his property. Gabriel was among those unarmed migrants and was fatally shot by Kelly. The judge ruled that Kelly will face charge on including a second-degree murder and aggravated assault. The court found that the offense were committed by Kelly and is now awaiting trial in Superior Court. I'm sorry, I can't talk today. And then the incident highlights the complexities and challenges surrounding the border security and the treatment of migrants in the region. Oh, geez. All right. But is that the truth? Just because I read it on the internet, does that mean it's the truth? How do they know he wasn't a coyote? I still have my questions on that. I don't know. But I'm suspicious of him because he was seen on his property a lot. That's not the first time you've seen him on his property. Yes, exactly. If it walks like a duck, it is a duck. I think that's how that saying goes. Exactly. He was taking money from people to get them across the border. Yes, that is, ladies and gentlemen, a coyote. Yes. Yes. Like I said, you cannot always believe what you read on the internet, but yes, he did. He took money, but on the internet says he wasn't a coyote. I wonder how I pronounce it. Coyote. No, he said he wasn't, but I don't believe him. Kind of goes to show, can you always believe what you read on the internet? No. Could you always believe what you read in the newspaper? No, not that either. Yeah. Oh, come on, people. Hurry up. I'm trying to come up with some content to keep everybody interested. Okay. So we got that clear. Not really, but taking money for people to go across the border. Yeah. Yeah, you are a coyote. All right. So. If it's on the internet, it must be true. Really? Are you being sarcastic? Hey, it's just like back in the day when you read everything in the newspaper. Is that always true? Well, maybe partially. I don't know. You can't always believe what you hear. Please, Mommy, tell me you were sarcastic. The internet said so. Can you imagine a kid saying that to his parent these days? Well, Mom, the internet said so. I Googled it. This is what a parent should do. That would be me. How long does it take to get an interpreter? Yeah, right. Oh, God. If it was paused, I'm going to be embarrassed. No. Mm-mm. Okay, no, it's not paused because they have that little thing swirling around in the bottom. Here.
Oh, come on. Oh, I'm gonna. What is going on here? Okay. All right, something's going on. This is weird. Let me let me see what's going on here. Oh, gosh. We love technology. I would evidently know. Okay, I'm going to do this here real quick. No, cancel that. All right, just 1 second, everybody. I'm very sorry about this, but I'm going to switch my live stream here to another YouTube. Okay. This is what we're actually seeing on the lives everywhere. Okay, those who are just joined us, we are following a trial, the Killing on the Ranch trial. All right, the man name is, well, I'm just going to, his last name is Kelly, and he is charged of allegedly shooting the victim. Let me start this all over again because I am just really choppy today. I just didn't think I was going to do this. Okay, Arizona rancher George Allen Kelly allegedly shot and killed, I'm going to just say Gabriel because that's what they call him, who he accused for trespassing on his ranch in Keno Springs after crossing the Mexico border. Killing his wife were concerned about the cartels trafficking drugs and people before the deadly incident happened. Reports say Gabriel had a history of allegedly crossing the border. Kelly is charged with a second-degree murder and aggravated assault. So that is what we are following. And the state did their opening, and I guess they blatantly ended the opening statement to get an interpreter. So now we're sitting here wondering who needs the interpreter. So if you're just joining us now, we were discussing that different things that the state has said. And one of them was discussing the AK-47 automatic, and also called it a semi. Can it be both? No. So that's what we are doing That's what is happening now with this court. So, if you're just joining us, have any questions? All right. Oh, yeah. What is everybody drinking right now? I'm drinking cold coffee. It should be hot, but this is spare the moment to come online today. Oh, man. One of the joys of being a host on the internet is when your content is delayed. What can one do? Oh, gosh. Come on, people. There's just so much I could talk about in that last 20 minutes. Oh, stick around, please. Stick around. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay.
All right, so everyone
Water
noticed
pressure.
that there's no water pressure in the building. Just found that out myself. Apparently a pipe burst in the city of Nogales down on, I think, First Street, which is down farther into the city. There's no water here. There's no water anywhere. Out of our control, I apologize. So what's happening is, well, before I tell you what's happening, I want to make sure I get this in. What I'm told, just to make things more fun, what I'm told is that sometimes when the water pressure goes down to a certain level, the fire alarm can go off because there's no water pressure. If that goes off, you won't miss it. Trust me, I've heard it before. It's pretty startling, but there's no reason to panic because there's no fire. So everyone don't, head for the exits. Just stick your fingers in your ear because you need to preserve your hearing. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue with the opening statement. I know you've all just had a communal toilet experience. It's very important. It's very important for jurors to bond. It's not the kind of way we hope you bond, but you just had your first bonding experience as jurors. I hope it went well. But what we'll do then is we'll break for lunch. I'm going to have you come back after lunch. We're going to continue with the opening statement. And we'll break for lunch. I'll have you come back at 1:30. But if they haven't fixed it or telling us that they can fix it, in a very reasonable amount of time, then we're just going to have to recess for the day because I'm not going to make.
Oh, that's right. They're in Arizona.
Continue with your fun bonding experience. Once was probably enough. So we'll do that. All right. Again, it just happened that we just found out about it. It's nothing to do with our building, the whole complex, the jail. Everybody's got without water. It'll probably be citywide. All right. Any questions about that? So that's the plan. Come back after lunch. Hopefully it'll be fixed, or soon will be fixed. We'll be able to continue. If not, then we're just going to have to recess for the day. Any questions? Sound good? No questions. All right. You know what I know. You can continue with your opening statement.
So we were talking about 3 o'clock, 3:15 that afternoon, the Border Patrol located Mr. Kelly, and they found him walking with his dogs, and he was carrying his AK-47. It was that AK-47 that has the green strap on it with the wood pieces to it and the metal. And one of the officers actually noticed that the AK-47 had a flashlight taped to the end of it with black electrical tape. And during this call for service, the officers had all split up into separate teams. So they took 3 separate statements from Mr. Kelly during this time. And we'll go through those during the trial, but we're not going to go through all of them here today. This is the first statement that George Kelly gave about 3 o'clock or 3:15 to Deputy Castaneda. And Deputy Castaneda was the lead officer for the Sheriff's Department that responded to this first call for service that day. And what George Kelly told Deputy Castaneda is that he was standing in his kitchen, which is sort of in that red dot area on the house. And he looked through his kitchen. There's a wall between the kitchen and the living room, and it has like a
If you're interested in the Chris Watts case.
Oh my gosh, sorry about that.
and he was standing at that kitchen island. This is that other photograph. You see now why I included the photograph that was not a crime scene photograph that has other vegetation that showed that other door, because this is a dark photograph and it's harder to see. But in this photograph, you can see both doors. You can see the door to the right, which is the door into the master bedroom, and you can see the door on the left, which is the door into the main living areas of the house. That's the door circled in blue that George Kelly came out that day. And on the left are those two kitchen windows. And what Kelly said he did was that he went to that east door, he grabbed his AK-47 that he keeps by the door, and he went outside and he saw people were possibly carrying rifles. That's what he tells Castaneda during this interview. So we know this is different from what he told Agent Marcel on the phone. He told Agent Marcel they were too far away to tell. And now this time he says they're possibly carrying rifles. And then he goes on to say that he heard a single gunshot from an AK-47. And he believed that the people had encountered another cartel and they shot at them to scare them off, and that's why he saw them running. He said he saw the people approximately 100 to 150 yards away from the residence, and that after that, he never saw them again. So all he sees is people 100 to 150 yards away from the residence, and he never sees them again. He says he walked back through his property to locate the people, but he didn't find them, and that's when the police arrived. He tells Castaneda he believes there's way more of them than he saw out there, but he's just speculating. He doesn't really know or have any reason to make that speculation. He's just speculating. And Castaneda tells Kelly that if anything like that happens again, stay inside your house and call 911. And Kelly says something very interesting at that time. Kelly says he understands Castaneda's given him advice, but he's going to do what he had to do to protect his property. He was conscious of the consequences, and he would take responsibility for his actions. The deputy reiterated to him again, stay inside and call 911. Here's the important part about all of these three statements that he gave to law enforcement that day. He never one time admitted that he shot his AK-47. He never told law enforcement that anyone pointed a gun at him. And he never told law enforcement that he was in fear for his life at any point that day. The next thing that happens in this case is Deputy Marcel gets another phone call after law enforcement leaves that day. And that phone call comes in about 4:23 that afternoon. And Deputy Marcel, I believe, is already off duty at this point, and he takes the call from Kelly. And Mr. Kelly tells him that he's very thankful for the responsiveness and how quickly the agents got there. And he wants to meet up the following day to sort of debrief about what happened. And Agent Morcell will tell you that that's kind of a normal thing. If there's some kind of border patrol incident, that the ranch liaison will go meet up with the homeowner. So that wasn't an odd request by Mr. Kelly that day. He said that during this phone conversation, Mr. Kelly just started rambling on during the phone conversation. And he was getting super excited about what had happened earlier that day. And then he started telling the story again about what happened. And he started sort of embellishing on what he told him earlier that day. He said he and Wanda were in the house and they heard a gunshot. And now you'll hear this is different. Instead of hearing the gunshot when he's outside, he's hearing the gunshot from the inside. And we went out onto the porch. He went out onto the porch and he saw his horse running by. And Wanda saw it too. There were 10 people all loaded down with AR-style rifles. 10 to 15 of them had rifles. So this is the story at 4:23. And again, the agent will tell you that he was super amped up during this phone conversation, differently than his conversation earlier in the day. An hour goes by, and Jeremy Morcell misses the phone call from George Allen Kelly. And this is the phone call that he missed.
Voicemail. Jeremy, this is Alan Kelly. You need to call me immediately. This is serious. Call me immediately. I can't say more over the phone. Bye.
Then after that voicemail message, which Jeremy Morcell will tell you that was an unusual tone of voice for Mr. Kelly, he got this text message at 5:26, also saying, call me immediately. Agent
Thank you for
Morcell,
coming
about
back.
5:35.
Sorry about all
At
the
this point, he's off duty. He's actually at the gym working out,
confusion. of
and he
my-
just didn't hear his phone ring when he called the first time. He didn't catch the text message, and he happened to walk over and notice that he missed a text and missed a call. And so he tries returning Mr. Kelly's
I
call.
already know.
They kind of play some phone tag back and forth. They're both trying to call one another. Eventually, they connect on the phone, and there's another phone conversation at 5:35. During this phone conversation, Mr. Kelly's demeanor is completely changed. He's evasive, he's nervous, he's scared, and his demeanor is totally different. He's a totally different person. During that fourth phone conversation, Kelly says, "This is worse than you can imagine. This is bad." And he just kept repeating that.
Probably
Morcell
was.
then offers to him to send out the sheriff's department and the border patrol. And he tells him, just tell me what's happening so that I can tell folks what you need. And Jeremy and Mr. Kelly tells him, is continuing to be evasive. And Morcell then suggests that Kelly call 911. If he needs help, if something's happening, that he should call 911. And Kelly says to him, you need to get border patrol. This is a border-related issue. And then he tells him, you know how shots were fired earlier? Something was possibly struck.
No.
And as Morcell continues to push for additional details,
Okay, here comes a blurry
Kelly tells him,
presentation.
I can't tell you more over the phone. And then he asks Morcell, is this being recorded? He somehow thought that a conversation with a law enforcement officer wasn't going to be recorded if it was the Border Patrol. So Mr. Kelly did not take Agent Morcell's advice. He did not call 911. But Agent Morcell called his dispatch, and his dispatch called 911. And then 911 called Mr. Kelly. And when 911 called Mr. Kelly, the dispatcher had a very interesting conversation with Mr. Kelly. When she first speaks to Mr. Kelly says, "It's very serious, ma'am, and I'm not gonna talk over the telephone." "Yeah, I know I can talk to you, but you're responsible for what I say, and I'm responsible for what I say. I didn't shoot at any, I haven't said I shot at any," and then his voice quivers and he says, "anything. I don't want to get you in trouble, and I don't want to get me in trouble." "Okay," he sighs. You know the thing, you have the right to remain silent, and anything you say can and will be held against you in a court of law. I'm not admitting to anything I've done, but all those things tend to add up. And I don't know what happened. I just know what I saw about 15 minutes ago. And then when he eventually gets to the point that he's marked a body with a flashlight, he tells her, "I have it marked, I've got a flashlight on over it." And the dispatcher says to him, "Do you know who it is that you saw?" And he says, "No, I didn't say I saw any body. I just saw a body." And then he goes on to say, "And from what in that I only approached the body to make sure that the animal, it's not a vegetable or a mineral, the animal wasn't alive, and it was not alive. There was no signs of blood. There was just an animal laying face down, an animal. And you know what an animal is. It's not a vegetable or a mineral, it's a body. And you know what I'm talking about." But I think more than the words of what he said to dispatch, when you hear the tone of what he says during this call, you'll see the impact of what it is that he's saying.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Hello?
Hi, sir. I'm calling from the
What
American
girl
County
here
Sheriff's Office.
today?
Yes.
Hi. I'm just calling because we received the report from Border Patrol.
Yeah.
So I was just calling to get more information.
Well, now he's
So what
in
happened?
shock.
You're gonna have
Because I
to
would be
send
in shock too.
an officer out here.
Okay, what's going on?
I can't,
I'm sorry?
it's very serious, ma'am, and I'm not gonna talk over the telephone.
Okay, I understand it's serious, but I need more context in order to send the deputy.
Okay, fine. It's going to be,
Go ahead, you can talk to me. What's going on?
yeah, I know I can talk to you, but you're responsible for what I say, and I'm responsible for what I say.
Yeah, really.
Can you give me a little context of what happened? What's going on? You told us
I'm not,
what did you shoot at?
I didn't shoot at I haven't said I shot at anything.
Okay, well, that's what Border Patrol told us, so that's why I'm just asking you.
Yeah. Y'all guys, the Nogales Sheriff Department had 4 or 5 guys out here this afternoon investigating a Border Patrol drug running incident. And I don't know if I can't remember the officer's name. There was 2 gentlemen and 2 young ladies. Maybe third. Do you know who I'm talking about? They came out to 100 Willow Cross Circle.
You mean for my deputies, correct?
And yeah, they were Nogales.
Yeah, I'm aware of what happened here.
You're aware? Okay, then they're aware of what happened, and I don't want to get you in trouble, and I don't want to get me in trouble, but I don't want to break the law or anything like that. So what I'm telling you is that
story.
we need a sheriff deputy out here, 100 Willow Cross Circle, immediately, and that's all I can say, ma'am.
Okay, is anyone hurt? I need to know, because if someone's hurt, I need to send an ambulance too.
is no.
Okay, do you feel more comfortable talking to a deputy over the phone?
Well, in other words, okay, you know the thing. You have the right to remain silent, and anything you can,
I understand.
you say can and will be held against you. And I'm not admitting anything I've done, but you know all those things tend to add up, and I don't know what happened. I just know what I just saw about 15 minutes ago, and it's something that an ambulance cannot help. EMTs cannot help. There's nothing out here that can be aided by EMT or emergency services. There's
Okay, I understand that you don't want to give me a lot of details,
Right
but
on.
why you are requesting an officer from me, so I needed to know for their own safety and your safety a little bit of what's happening, what's going on.
okay. I'll put it like this. Last spring, out here, there was a pickup found on East Sagebrush with a dead lady in it.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you knew of that or not.
Yes, sir, I'm aware of what happened.
Okay. It's a situation similar to that. How's that?
Okay.
If you follow, you understand what I'm saying? It's a situation exactly like that.
Okay.
And so that's going to require the sheriff to come out here.
Okay. Can you tell me a description of the
No,
vehicle?
I don't have a description. There's not a vehicle.
What she did.
The only thing that I was referring to in conjunction with that accident was
This phone call is
the
hurting
body.
you, Steve.
Okay.
You got it?
Okay. All right. Okay. Can I have your name?
Yes, George Kelly.
George Kelly. Okay, George. Would you, if my deputy goes over there, would you take him to whatever it is that you found?
Yes, I have it marked. I have a flashlight on over it because it's going to be dark when he gets here probably, but I'll take it to him.
And you are sure an EMT cannot help?
I am positive. I have a medical background. An EMT cannot help.
Okay. Do you know whoever it is that you saw?
No, I do not know. I didn't say it was anybody. I just said it was a body.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
I'm not trying to be smart, ma'am.
Well, I understand. You're trying to be careful, and I get that. However, I hope you understand that on my end, I have to take care of my deputies too. So I need a little bit more context as to why you needed a deputy to head out there.
Now you know that there is a body here.
Okay. All right. Does it look somewhat?
It's not alive. So you asked, did you need EMT? I said no.
Okay.
Not sure. A coroner will be involved sooner or later.
I understand. George, can you tell me something? Is it discolored from somewhere?
Is it discolored?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Has it been there for a while? Can you tell?
From what? In that I only approached the body to make sure that the animal, it's not a vegetable or a mineral, the animal wasn't alive and it was not alive.
Okay.
There were no signs. There was no signs of blood. There was just an animal laying face down.
An animal?
An animal, and you know what an animal is. It's not a vegetable or a mineral. It's a body, and you know what I'm talking about.
I understand what you're talking about, George. Okay, I'm going to send the deputy then over to your house so you can lead them over to wherever you found what it is. Okay?
And now, maybe one of the deputies were out here. They know how to get here because it's 100 Willowcroft Circle, and it's kind of hard to find. It's a rat right on the border.
It's an animal.
So I have one of my deputies that responded earlier going over your way.
That's good. You do that. They know how to get here, and I'll have the gate open.
Okay, sounds good, George. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I appreciate your help and your patience, and I'm sorry if
I accept.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Did.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
It was just a few minutes after that, that the first deputy arrived for this second call for service. And that was Deputy Rafael Lopez. And Deputy Lopez had responded to the scene earlier in the day, but he was one of the later deputies. He was that later deputy who got there after really everything had finished up earlier in the day. And what Deputy Lopez did when he got there was he turned on his recorder. And he recorded, as soon as he arrived at the scene for a few minutes, of what George Kelly was reporting to him. And this is that recording.
I'm afraid somebody had shot. You know, there was a shot fired, and I didn't know what it was about. Okay, so I went out to get the horse, always bring him in and feed him. Put him in another pasture. I went out there to get him. And y'all guys, you weren't over here? Yeah, I was here. Well, y'all walked all over there. And the border patrol walked all over. And maybe this happened after you left. I don't know. There's a body right now. And I don't. Yes. About fresh. I didn't, as soon as I saw it, I backed away from it. The line, place face down. It's dead. The body is first. I have no way of being a judge. He was a mule. You know what a mule is? It's a drug runner. He has a pack on him, a small pack on him. Now, if you remember, we saw 5 to 10 drug runners coming through with large backpacks. Yes, he did not have a large backpack on him, but he had a small one. He was in tan here and camo. And, so, as soon as I found him getting straight back to the call, I called Border Patrol because they were the first ones I called. Because I didn't really know how to call you guys. So I called Border Patrol, Jerry Morissette. He called the Border Patrol agent, and he said they're going to call the sheriff and they'll send someone out there. Then your secretary or dispatcher called me. I was on the phone with her when you drove up. And she said he's coming out right now. I have no idea. I have no idea. And you know, if you were me, you got no idea. You know what I'm saying?
Good point, Mommy.
Yeah.
I'll be right back, you guys.
Okay, you go ahead. I'll go leave the gate open. My dog will bark. 2 black ones? Huh? 2 black ones? Yeah, there's this one. Yeah. I'm sorry. Let's drag you out. Give you something that it ain't serious. Yeah. It ain't like somebody stole my popcorn. So it could be a body that, it could be, the body could have expired after y'all were here. I have no idea. Stuff running around all over this place all the time, you know. How far is it from here? Okay, I'll take the 5 days over there. Yeah. We'll go to the gate. I'll be there.
Shortly after this, Sergeant Omar Rodriguez arrives at the scene, and Sergeant Rodriguez meets up with Deputy Lopez and George Kelly by a horse trailer that's down by a gate into the pasture area of where the horse was kept by the house. And when Sergeant Rodriguez arrived about 6:15, he saw that Kelly was wearing that Glock handgun still on his hip. And he asked Mr. Kelly if he would be willing to take that handgun off for officer safety reasons and leave it behind in the trailer. And Mr. Kelly agreed to do that. He took the weapon off and left it in his horse trailer that's right next to the gate in that pasture area. From there, Kelly took Rodriguez out to the body, and they walked around on that dirt path that goes around from the driveway that you saw, that dirt road, that's the driveway. They took the dirt path around the outside of the pasture back to where the body was located. And they found the body near that tree that we saw, and the defendant had hung up a flashlight in the tree so that they could locate it, because it was starting to get dark at this point. And as I mentioned before, the sergeant found the Gabriel's body laying face down with his head toward the south, with his face implanted in the dirt, and his legs were towards the north. So, and we showed a little picture of that earlier on how the body was positioned. And when Sergeant Rodriguez got a good look at the body, he could see the gunshot entry wound in Gabriel's back, and he could see that was on the right side of his body, which then lined up with the Kelly's residence. Later, they were able to look and discover that the gunshot exited from the chest. He made a number of other observations about the body. He saw that there was no pulse. The extremities were cool, but the torso was still a little warm to the touch. He looked around the area because of the story that Mr. Kelly had about these other people and things of that nature. He looked around and he saw there weren't any drag marks. There wasn't a blood trail. There was nothing to indicate there were groups of people nearby. He saw nothing like that in the area. And nothing at all that indicates that a body had somehow been dumped there or anything of that nature. It appeared to Sergeant Rodriguez as if Gabriel had fallen there and died. And he noted, as I said before, that gunshot wound generally lined up with the trajectory to where George Kelly was shooting from on his back patio. And again, just a reminder of the photograph of how he found the body. And I think we've already gone through all this, but it kind of shows you where that gunshot wound was lining up with the residence. And again, just the body positioning with that tiny little stick figure to just show you how the body was lining with the gunshot entry on the house side. Now, a little while later, after they do their investigation there at the scene and they gather the information about what had happened earlier in the day from all their sources, George Kelly's transported to the sheriff's department for an interview. He's read his Miranda rights, and a video interview is conducted of him. And this is the still shot from that video interview that happened about 8:29 p.m. that night. So we're talking maybe 6 hours after the homicide. And you'll learn that during that interview, George Kelly tells Detective Ainsa that he was eating lunch in the kitchen, and when he looked out through the living room window, and he heard a shot. Now he's in the house when he hears the shot. Before, he's outside when he hears the shot. He hears a shot. It's close, and he sees his horse running by. He says about 100 to 150 yards out, he sees men running with tan shirts and pants with a full brown, big, solid backpack on. He then clarifies that he saw them and then he heard the shot after he came outside. And he says that he saw them run into the arroyo. He told this whole story without admitting that he shot his AK-47. Never admitted he shot his AK-47. It was about 30 minutes into the interview, and after Detective Ainsa pressed him about conversations that Kelly had earlier with Agent Morcell, when George Kelly finally admitted he shot his AK-47 that day. He says to Detective Ainsa that they were running, and he moves his hand from left to right, parallel with me. They were parallel to the house. I'm telling you the truth, did not make the statement that I shot somebody or shot at or shot somebody or shot, period. So then he's denying that he even told Agent Morcell that he had shot his AK-47. And when Detective Ainsa presses him and says, "Did you shoot?" George Kelly admits, yes, he shot. And then he claims that he shot over their heads. And when Detective Ainsa asks him, how far were they when you shot him? George Kelly says 150 yards. Well, we know where Gabriel's body was discovered, 115 yards from the back of the Kelly residence. And why did you shoot at them when they were running away from you? Detective Ainsa asked. And Kelly says, because when you're out there in that situation and you have people that they weren't running away from me, they were just running. And you said earlier that they were running away. They were running across, hand moves from, again, his hands moving from left to right, across the wash. And then he clarifies that they were running 100 to 150 yards away again. And then he says, now he says they're armed. And the detective then asks them, when they were running with the rifle, did they ever point their rifle at you? Up until this point, George Allen Kelly has never said a peep about these individuals pointing a gun at him. And we know based on what he told Agent Morcell earlier, that they were way too far away for him to see if they had any handguns or had any kind of weapons. And what Kelly says at this point is he says, if a guy's running and he turns, he's going to turn and he's going to point it at you. Just in a mode of turning, he's going to point it at you. So yes, they turned the rifle and pointed it towards me. And again, that's with the knowledge that we already have, that he already told Agent Morcell that if they were too far away for him to tell if they had weapons. So what's important about the statement that Kelly made to Detective Ainsa, he didn't admit he shot his AK-47 until 30 minutes into the interview, and that's because he had something to hide. He knew he'd killed Gabriel. He didn't say anyone pointed a gun at him until Detective Ainsa asked him about it. And he didn't say he was in fear for his life until Detective Ainsa suggested it to him. Now, after this interview with George Kelly, late into the evening of January 30th of 2023 and early into the morning of January 31st of 2023, detectives Ainsa and other members of his team worked to serve a series of search warrants. They served some search warrants on the house. They served some search warrants on the vehicles and the surrounding outbuildings. And you'll hear that during that series of search warrants, they recovered the AK-47 that we showed you in the picture that was used in this incident. They asked for assistance from, we're a small department, so we asked for assistance not just from the Department of Public Safety, but also from ATF. They have a dog that can sniff for explosives and can find spent casings. And so we utilize their canine to look for the spent casings. And in this case, we're talking a very high-powered rifle that went through and through the body and into the desert. That projectile could be up to a mile away. That projectile was not recovered by the ATF canine, and it was not recovered even based on detectives' efforts with a metal detector. The officers did recover 9 fresh AK-47 casings near the back patio of George Kelly's residence. And the first one was actually discovered by the canine. And I'll show you that photograph in a minute. The other 8 casings were discovered by Detective Joe Bunting, who's now Sergeant Joe Bunting. He found those looking during the daylight the following morning. And with him, he also had a metal detector, I believe. But again, because of the terrain and the type of weapon used, the projectile was not recovered in this case. So we talked a little bit about the weapon earlier, the AK-47, and we talked about the bullets or the rounds, but I've been using a phrase that I didn't explain to you, and that is a spent casing. So the bullet or the round has several parts on the top that you can see that's shiny on the bullet that's in this picture. And then on the bottom is the darker part, and that part's called the casing. And inside the casing are the explosives that cause the projectile to spew out of the top of the round. And so what's left over and what ejects from the weapon is called the spent casing. That's just that metal piece that's left over that the explosives are now out of and the projectile is now out of. So 9 casings were recovered around the area of George Kelly's back patio. And on the right in these pictures, is that your right? Yes, is the spent casings. On the left, you can see the rounds or the bullets. Now, during that search warrant, I indicated that detectives found the semi-automatic assault rifle, the AK-47. It was in George Kelly's bedroom, and it was behind the door, and it had a sweater over it. George Kelly told the detectives that he always keeps that weapon by his back patio door. It was not there that day when detectives came. And in fact, what you'll hear is that it was really late when detectives were there. They took that photograph on the left the first time they were there, and they left the AK-47 behind. They had to come during their second search warrant. They came back and recovered the AK-47. But that is the AK-47. It was in the same spot when they came back, and they did recover it during the second search warrant. This is the ATF canine that found the first casing in this case. And you can see the tent, the evidence tent is where that first casing was located. The next day, you can see detectives have located the other 8 casings in this case. And just to give you an idea of where those casings are located, this is just a still shot of that aerial drone footage we looked at. And you can see the yellow circle is where the 8 casings were discovered by the detective. And the one in blue is the one casing that was discovered by the canine.
I'm sorry. It's almost noon. Let's break for the lunch hour. I don't have any additional information about the water situation. Sound like court administrator coming in here, but I doubt it's fixed yet. We're gonna break for lunch. Back in the jury room at 1:30. We'll find out what the water situation is and decide to go from there. But if they haven't fixed it and are not able to fix it shortly after there, we'll probably just recess for the day. Let's be optimistic about that, and I'll see you back in the jury. We'll see you back in court. Please be in the jury room at 8:30. Please remember the admonition of the court. That applies to the break at all times. All right?
All right. Going to lunch. So it is it's 2:00 here in Iowa. It's noon there. And they're going to be back at what, 1:30? So, all right, I'm just going to go ahead and shut this live down, and I'll come back when the court is back. So the local time is 11:54 there. And probably around 3. I'll be back at 3:00 my time. So I'll see everybody in an hour. Bye. Have some lunch, have some coffee. I got hot coffee. And we will see you in an hour. Don't forget to hit the like button because it warms my heart.